much the same thing. It's going to say pretty much. On my iPad, I got 37 different translations of the Bible. I can pick that up and go, and it's like carrying a whole carton of books. But they all say pretty much the same thing. They kind of bring it out in different ways and look at it in different, angles and things like that. But it all says pretty much the same thing. It says anything is possible if you believe. Amen. If you believe. Anything. You say, where's that at? Let me tell you where it's at. You have to look at my notes. What is verse 23? But I don't have the book. It says so right here. Kevin, find that for me.
Okay.
Jesus is teaching and he says, huh?
What is it? Go ahead and tell me.
Jesus is teaching and he says, anything is possible. Well, let me actually read it. Anything or all things, I'm not sure.
It's Mark's gospel, I know that.
Huh?
It is Mark's gospel.
Mark, okay. Jesus said unto them, if thou can believe, all things are possible to him that believes. You know something? I make mistakes. I write down scriptures and I don't reference where they are. But God still has them. So see, it doesn't matter what your situation is. It don't matter what your situation is. It's pretty simple. He wants relationship. He wants relationship. Now, here's one of my favorite things. Jesus' disciples come to him and they said, John's disciples taught him how to pray. Lord, would you teach us how to pray? And so he began to teach them with what we call the Lord's Prayer. Now, the Lord's Prayer is not really something that we just say, but it's really an outline of how we should pray. Now, if you say the Lord's Prayer, there's nothing wrong with that. But it starts by our Father which art in heaven. And then it gets into hallowed be thy names, and then thy name. And when you look at the names of God, one of the names of God is Jehovah. Jehovah. The name Jehovah means that he is a God of covenant. He is a God of covenant. In other words, he made a covenant with you. A covenant with his people. A covenant to everyone that says, yes, Lord, I will follow you. In that covenant, now I made a covenant with my wife one time. We walked down an aisle. Actually, we didn't walk down the aisle. We walked out. But I was already up here, and her dad walked her down the aisle, and I'm standing there thinking, wow, this is the most beautiful woman in the world. So you've had that experience. If you didn't, you will. I mean, those that haven't had that experience. Isn't it amazing how the Lord just allows you to just stumble all over you? But when that lady and I came together, and the pastor said, "Will you take this woman to be your wife, and you do this and that and all these things?" She comes home every day, and she expects there to be food in the cupboard. I mean, for some reason, she expects me to take care of her and feed her. And when she needs a new dress, she don't call her dad anymore. You see, she has a covenant with me, and she expects me to provide a new dress for her. And if she needs a new pair of shoes, and what woman doesn't need a new pair of shoes? I mean, need or want it, they're so closely aligned when it comes to shoes, you can't really tell the difference. But she expects me to provide a pair of shoes for her. Because we had a covenant. And if I were to refuse to give her a pair of shoes or to buy her a new dress, she's going to look at me and say, "What's wrong with him? He's my husband. He's supposed to provide for me. He said when we got married, he would provide." It's in writing. Hey, look, right here's our license. You're committed. You have a covenant. Well, God said, "I have a covenant with you, and I will provide for you." Yeah. He is a God of covenant. He is Jehovah Jireh, the God whose provisions can be seen. So it doesn't matter if it's $5 on the street when you're hungry. It doesn't matter if it's a car when you don't have a way to get to work. It doesn't matter if it's a house when you have a need to get out of the elements. It doesn't matter if it's a new dress or clothes. And if you're a husband, it doesn't matter if your wife or kids need those things. He has coveted to take care of you. I'm tired of going to churches hearing messages about how it can make you feel good. I hope this makes you feel good, but I mean, just telling you how awesome you are and all the abilities you have inside of you, and you can be successful. And it's not really about you when you go to church. It's really about Him, and it's really about giving honor and glory to Him and increasing your relationship. That's what it's really about. How would my wife feel, this woman I'm in covenant with, if I called her up and I said, baby, I've been going out of town for a few days, and I'll be in tomorrow night, and I want to take you out to dinner. We go to dinner, and we sit down, and we go to a real expensive place, and there's music playing in the background. The table's nice, you got white linens and all this, and I look at her and I was saying, I've come up with some ways that you can improve yourself. Yeah, it would be cold that night, wouldn't it? We see that in so many of our churches. We see that in our churches. How would we feel if Don got up on a Sunday morning and he's doing his thing in church and he says, I've got a few days off this week and I'm planning to still spend some time with Michelle. You all pray for me. Don't we do that with God? Would you pray for me that I can increase my relationship with you? Would you pray for me that I can find the discipline to read the Word? Would you pray with me that I can spend more time in? Don't we do that with God? Well, after Michelle kicked him out, totally embarrassed, and would never want to come back to church again after, her husband said something like that. How do you think God feels? We give such silly requests sometimes. I'm trying to learn to spend more time with Him. I'm trying to learn to trust God more. He's a God of covenant. He is a God of covenant. He said to you, He kind of took you in His arm, and so to speak, you walked down that aisle together. And He said to you, He looked into your eyes, and He said, I accept you just the way you are. And now I want you to know that I love you. And all you say is, Lord, would you forgive me? Would you just come into my life? Oh yes, I'll do that, but I'll do more than that. I'll be there for you always. I will never ever leave you. I will never forsake you. That's what He said to you. Because He's Jehovah Jireh. He's a covenant God who will supply all your needs. He's Jehovah Rapha. Jehovah Rapha, the God who is our healer. Now, I want you to think about that. My wife and I had a child a few years ago. He's now 19 years old. Our last one. When John was born, my wife came home from the hospital. Oh, that was a miracle birth. I have to share that with you sometimes. I won't be able to tonight. But John was born, and my wife came home from the hospital, and those ladies, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you just don't want to jump up and cook dinner, and you're not going to clean the house, right? But who do you think she expected to do those things? We had other children that had to eat. She wanted something to eat. But you see, we're in a covenant here. God is in a covenant. He said, if you're sick, I will heal you. He's Jehovah, the God of covenant, the God of promise, that said, I will heal you. I'm not making this up. And I didn't write this book. He did. Now, how would it be if my wife come home and she's sick and she's having struggles and she's not feeling well? She just had the baby, and she comes in and I sit down in my lazy boy recliner and I lean back and I say, I'm hungry. The problem is we have problems in our relationship. We have problems in our relationship. She's laying in the bed and she's suffering and she's hungry and she's not able to provide for me or even for herself or any of the other children that we had. And I'm thinking, well, why aren't you doing something? Don't we look at it sometimes as if we have to do something to get God to get our attention? You know what all that really means? It means we have trouble in our marriage. If we have trouble in our relationship. Some of us need to check our relationship with God because there's probably some trouble in our relationship when we are suffering and we're going through all these. I'm not trying to say that it's your fault of this or your fault of that. I'm here just trying to teach you and to give you some hope. As Kevin said earlier, I believe you said this earlier tonight, the hope is what we have our faith in. If you have no hope, you have no faith. You have no hope, you have nothing to have faith in. I want to give you hope that God is going to heal you. I'm showing you in the Word where He said He would heal you. I'm showing you that He has made a covenant with you. That He made a covenant, that He signed that covenant with the blood of His Son. And all of heaven and earth would pass away before He would not honor that covenant. Before He would not reach out and minister to your need. Before He would not take away that pain. All of heaven and earth would have to pass away before, and then He would not. And then He would not. But some of us have trouble in our relationship. Because, and it's not always your fault. Now I'll get into the psychiatry class that I used to take, the psychology class I used to do. You know, it's not your fault, but don't blame your mother. Blame your pastor. What I want to tell you tonight is simply this. Jesus Christ thinks you are absolutely awesome. He has so much love for you. Now when He looks at you and you're suffering, tears will come in His eyes. You say, where's the scripture for that? At the tomb of Lazarus. When Lazarus' sister was hurting so bad, she said, Lord, why? Why didn't you come? If you had been here, my brother would be alive. The Bible says He wept. He wept. And He said, Martha, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Your brother will live again. The pain will be gone. You will be healed. And she said, Lord, I know that my brother will live again in the resurrection. I know that he'll live again on the other side. Folks, sometimes we settle for the idea of, all right, I'm sick in this life, but in the next life, I'll be able to walk. In the next life, I won't have any pain. In the next life, my eyes will be open. In the next life, things will be better. But Jesus said, Martha, I am the resurrection. Yes. She said, I know that he'll live again in the resurrection. He said, but Martha, I am the resurrection. I am the healer. I am the provider. I am the one that loves him. I am the one that cares for him. I am the one that he's close to. I am the one that wants to put my arms around him. I am the one that can change the situation.